Well, let's dive into this, Tim, because and so did the beautiful people of the Second Legacy, that we had a really amazing ruling come out of the Fourth Circuit around the Maryland licensing laws, right? They basically said, and that's unconstitutional AF. That's what they basically said. So they said, that's probably not a good look. Well, Tim, the Maryland police have spoken. They have. And this is number 12. Police in this blue state will continue enforcing the draconian handgun law ruled unconstitutional by the court. Now, I know this gets your goats, Tim. All your goats. The whole herd of goats. It gets them. Because they're just doing whatever the hell they want, isn't it?
Yeah, and it drives me nuts. And we've touched upon this in the past, right? When the courts hand down decisions and states ignore those decisions, other courts ignore those decisions. They just do what they want. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably one of the problems with our republic is that our founders didn't put some sort of an enforcement policy in there. I mean, I guess the courts can do certain things. They can send law enforcement and stuff like that. But we see this more and more often, I think, where they just ignore the courts and the rulings. Now, this isn't a flat out, ignoring.
Yeah, this has some nuance.
There is a nuance to it, but still, they know what they've done is wrong. They know where the court stands on this, but they're just running the clock down, and they're going to jam up as many innocent citizens of the state as they possibly can until the court undoes it. Now, what does that mean for those that are jammed up by this, where they're still enforcing it until the court finally, makes a final decision on all this? I don't know. Does that mean that the charges will be dropped? Does it mean, well, we arrested you before it was actually enforceable? So we don't know. And that's what these little tyrants want to do, I suspect, is try to jam as many people up as they possibly can before the courts actually force them to stop.
Well, they want their status quo. They don't like changing, and organizations don't like ceding power. So
no,
that's important. I have no idea, by the way. That just word that came out real weird.
They want to turn as many of us into felons as they possibly can, so we can have our rights denied. So,
because rights on rights. Well, let me show you what they're doing here, because I think that's good. I think that's a good intro here. So the Maryland State Police will continue enforcing the state's handgun law for now, despite the whole ruling that rules it is unconstitutional. Quote, at this time, the HQL law remains in effect, and there are no immediate changes in process to purchase a firearm in Maryland. Now, I've got the actual document we're going to bring up in a second, but effectively, it's a big FU. But the reason that they're doing it, this is an interesting piece here. So as we go into the actual licensing, understand this is what we're talking about. This is what was ruled unconstitutional. This is number 16. Maryland's handgun qualification license requires applicants to submit fingerprints for a background check, take a 4-hour firearm safety course with a live fire component, and wait up to 30 days for approval before purchasing a handgun. That's the problem, which then requires another application and a 7-day waiting period. So that's what they ruled unconstitutional. It's not hard. This is very simple. You're telling me I have to have a license and a waiting period before I can partake in a right.
Yep.
Why is this difficult?
And the Constitution says this is not allowed, right? And the courts have determined this is not allowed. So if a FFL goes out there and completes a transaction based upon the court's decision, pending decision, however you want to word that, then they can be charged. And I would imagine the person buying the gun may be charged too. I don't know. And that is, maybe they could even lose their license over it.
Right. And there's there's real world complications. There's consequences. Right.
So, I mean, hopefully
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
See, we don't step on each other very much. This must be emotional for us, man. It's a thing. Yeah. So here's the shtick. They're hanging this up on, we don't have to do it until the federal court issues a mandate. And I think that's interesting because they've already said it's unconstitutional. Right. Wouldn't you think that, well, since it's unconstitutional and I have to abide by the Constitution, I can't do this anymore? No. They go, no, you didn't tell me what I had to do. You only said it's bad. It's kind of like when you catch a kid lying and you go, that's not, you can't lie. I didn't lie. Oh, we're still doing this. Oh, yep. Okay. Well,
so, I mean,
this is annoying.
I guess the reason why this rubs me so wrong is because, I am partners in a gun store in FFL, and it's already a mess of laws and regulations and what you can and can't do. Like a gun store owner cannot help guide somebody in answering questions on a 4473 form. If they ask you what something means, you can't give them any answers, and they'll send in agents to sting you to see if you do that and stuff. So they're always looking for angles to bring FFLs down. So when a court makes a decision like this, there are going to be FFLs out there like, oh yeah, the court decided in our favor. And so they're going to go about conducting business as normal. But then the state police is saying, no, you still have to do this, and we're going to enforce this until we get our mandate. And so that's what really drives me nuts about this, because again, they're going after individuals, and I think that they're looking to jam up FFLs. We already know the ATF has revoked the licenses of thousands. Yeah, they just go nuts revoking licenses for just ridiculous reasons that before were just not even enforced, or I mean, you might get a nasty letter in the mail. Now you lose your license and everybody's out of a job.
And so this is important, just in case for any gun grabbers watching. Something that you just said is key. They weren't enforced. What he's talking about is like spelling errors on 4473s.
Right.
He's not talking about background checks and Nick's background check. He's not talking about any of that stuff. You are literally talking about things like street versus court or circle versus boulevard. Like,
and if you abbreviated it, did you use the postal abbreviation or did you use a non-standard abbreviation? Because now it's an invalid form if you used a non-standard, non-postal abbreviation on something, right? So, it's insanity, and well,
I think that's important to clarify.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so now here in this, before we get to the Maryland announcement, then we get to G3. This is what they're saying. This is what they're hanging their whole argument on, Tim. Listen to this. This is number 20, button pusher or doc, whatever you want today. Maryland officials have 14 days to file for a rehearing before the full appeals court. If the state does not file within that window, the court will issue a mandate 7 days later, which means the final court ruling would be December 11th. So, dude, I think you used the example earlier of paying your taxes in pennies. That's exactly what they are doing here. That's exactly it. They're just running the clock down.
Games. Yep, they're running the clock down playing games.